Have you ever noticed asparagus plants growing beside the road? Maybe you've had them pop up in your garden only to wonder, can I move asparagus sprouts? A couple of years ago, I noticed a volunteer growing with one of my container citrus trees. This is not a companion planting by any means, but I didn't start digging up asparagus right away. Earlier this spring, I knew it needed to happen, so I'm sharing the process and the results. It's Scott from New Garden Road, always out here to inform, inspire, and elevate you. Encouraging biodiversity and restoring habitat is my mission. One garden at a time. So first of all, why am I moving it? Clearly this plant is happy growing in a container. Although I love growing and eating homegrown asparagus, it amounts to a giant weed in this case. As the root system develops, it will inhibit the growth of my citrus tree, and that's no good. So how do I go about transplanting it successfully? The first rule of thumb is to dig the new planting location prior to digging up the plant that you're moving. If you're harvesting rootstock and you need to transport it before replanting, you can place it in a potting mix or some moist sand for a period of time. Cutting back some of the top growth will prioritize establishment of new roots. So when I'm using my hori-hori knife, it's really important that the position is completely vertical. You want to go straight down as much as possible. You want to actually kind of cut out almost like a cylinder. For me, the process is working slowly and carefully. Make several passes, cutting around the root zone of the plant that you want to dig up until you feel it really become loose. A lot of times it's going to be the roots that are deepest in the center that are going to be the ones that are still attached. But if you keep working it, as you get some space around that root ball, you will come in at a little bit of an angle and try to lift it up, pry it out. You don't want to force it before it's ready though, because then you could really cause some damage. You really want to try to have it all in one piece. If you end up with a bare root plant, it's just going to require more TLC. The goal for transplanting is to harvest a majority of the rootstock along with some of the existing soil in order to limit transplant shock. Now I'm adding a little finished compost and worm castings to the planting hole. These will add biology and nutrients to the soil. I set the asparagus crown just below the soil level, backfilled, and gently firmed it in. Top dressing the area with more compost and worm castings is a nice finish. Then I form a soil berm around the asparagus to help channel water to the roots. This is a short-term solution that won't be required once the plant gets established. I always mulch around my plants to help retain moisture, discourage weeds from taking hold and competing with the plants for nutrients, as well as to protect the soil microbiome. I usually follow up with a nice drench of liquid seaweed to help lessen any transplant shock and to encourage new root development. I was careful to water this transplant daily for about 2 weeks until it really got established, and since that time it's been on my regular cycle with my drip irrigation, roughly twice a week, maybe 3 times a week as we've gotten into some extreme heat here recently. I've also been applying a drench fertilization weekly with the Neptune's Harvest fish fertilizer, Rev humic acids, and the soluble seaweed powder. That's my triple trio that I really like to apply to transplants, new plantings. A couple of bonus points here that might help you out. Number one is whenever you're transplanting something, it could be ideal to do it at the end of the day. That way you're outside of any hot sunny conditions which could further stress out that plant. Overnight it'll be able to slowly acclimate and it will be better able to transition in that scenario. You could also consider severing some of those roots well ahead of transplanting, maybe in the order of a week. This will trigger the plant to begin to develop new roots, and it gives it a chance to begin recovering from that stress before being fully uprooted. And now, when can I expect my first harvest? Asparagus planted from seed needs to establish roots for a few years prior to the initial harvest. This asparagus plant volunteered 2 years ago, and based on the size of the root system, I think it will likely need 2 more years before I can begin to harvest from it seasonally. Sweat time, water time. Got some iced coffee. Tastes like citronella. It was good. All right. Ooh, yeah, doing a good job. High quality H2O. What up, Candle? I need you. Now check out more awesome gardening videos on my channel. Like this video and follow New Garden Road for weekly content. You can grow your own asparagus. Keep it organic.